I'm being told, viewers, that Nancy Pelosi, who is the Speaker of the US House of Representatives, Congresswoman in her own rights, has landed in Taiwan. Now, viewers, this is the first time in over 25 years that any American high-ranking official has landed in Taiwan. The Chinese are completely besides themselves with anger. I will show you some quotes. The Chinese have come out and said that this is an act of gross provocation, number one. Number two, that China follows a one China policy, that Taiwan is theirs. No one can land, in fact, in Taiwan without the prior approval of the Chinese, especially the Americans that are trying to, at some level or the other, change the equation between Taiwan and China. Remember, viewers, China believes Taiwan is its own territory and therefore is in no way alienated from the mainland. Let me go straight across to Madhavdas Krishnan for the very latest on this. Madhav, war of words been breaking out between the Chinese and the US. Some people, perhaps prematurely, already speculating that this could trigger a massive world war.
Well, of course, Rahul, there has been a lot of build-up, and of course, while it may be just saber-rattling at its best, as we've seen many times in the past, but we have seen Chinese jets, in fact, being scrambled across the Taiwan Straits earlier today, and of course, all of that activity taking place in the run-up to the landing of that US Air Force special aircraft whose call sign goes by SPAR 19. Now, this has been one of the most tracked aircraft online ever, and several of the online aircraft tracking websites have even crashed owing to the huge volume of traffic and interest that this entire episode has generated. Yes, there are buildings that have been lit up welcoming Nancy Pelosi. There's a huge build-up of police as well as politicians of Taiwan who are present on the tarmac to greet her, which, as you rightly said, since Newt Gingrich about 25 years ago, she's the first high-ranking official of the United States and someone who's been associated with several landmark legislations in the US House of Representatives, who's now, of course, touched down on ground. Now, this is a very long and circuitous route that has been taken after taking off from Kuala Lumpur, taking the Philippines route to actually touch down there in Taipei. This is certainly going to be a very, very important visit, because we've already seen the statements coming out from China. There have been disapproving words coming in from Russia as well. But is this a similar sort of exercise that we saw?
Stay on with me. I want to go across to Ting Liu, military expert, who's joining us from Taiwan. The first visuals of a US official of this stature since Newt Gingrich in 1997, who was also Speaker, visited Taiwan. What we are seeing here is perhaps nothing short of history. Back then, the Chinese response was not as aggressive as it is now. Why do you think the Chinese are reacting so aggressively now, Ting Liu?
No doubt we are seeing a very different political environment and political spectrum as compared to what we are seeing 25 years ago. So, we are seeing like stronger words and maybe a stronger pressure from within PRC itself. And no doubt, just before Pelosi's arrival in Taiwan, there has actually been a lot of rhetoric coming out from the, we are seeing like not only the Chinese state media, but also within PRC itself. So, there are actually expectations, from the outsider, we see that maybe there are expectations for the PRC government to react more actively to such a situation. And we are also seeing that, no doubt, US-China tensions has been increasing over the past few years. And Taiwan, is a key issue that, as of now, both sides see, especially from the PRC point of view, as a problem, as an issue. So no doubt we are facing with a very different political spectrum right now.
Very, very interesting analysis by Ting Liu. Viewers, let me tell you that the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian has said, quote, "We would like to tell the United States once again that China is standing by the Chinese People's Liberation Army, which will never sit idly by, and China will take resolute responses and strong countermeasures to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity," unquote. This was a comment by the China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson. during a regular daily briefing. General Bakshi, what do you make of this commentary? Is this China posturing? Or do you believe the Chinese have the capacity to act?
Look, both sides are posturing. This is a game of brinkmanship. This is a game of chicken. Initially, President Biden said his chief of staff, military chief of staff, General Miley, doesn't think it's a very good idea. Nevertheless, Nancy Pelosi decided to come to China. It was not revealed earlier. Now she's coming with due precautions from the eastern side. 8 F-15 aircraft with a tanker from Japan have escorted her flight. Right? China has declared, stopped all civilian flights in the area. Their Su-35s were up. Now, and China, when the talk took place between Biden and Xi Jinping just about a few days back, China warned the United States that you are playing with fire, you could get burnt. So the Americans now had their prestige pitted. They have gone ahead with this visit. It remains to be seen what China will do.
Okay.
What is the matrix of military options? One, you do nothing. You lose face. I don't think the Chinese can afford that. Xi Jinping is heading for his third term. He wants to secure a third term. He wants to look strong in front of his people, in front of the world. So then what do? You do symbolic action. Let us say you fire some missiles, tactical ballistic missiles, against some Taiwanese targets. Could be ships, could be land-based targets. You fire a shot across the bow. 3, you do a limited action. There are a number of Taiwanese islands very close to the Chinese port, Nangsha, etc. You take one of them, right? Number 4, you say, let me not go step by step. If I have to do, let me do a Pearl Harbor. So you fired the Dongfeng missiles against the 4 carrier battle groups of the Americans that are floating around in that area, in South China Sea, in the Sea of Japan, etc., East China Sea, and you go full hog. So what will China do? I think it will confine itself for the time being to no direct clash with the United States, but definitely it will try to show and assert and show its displeasure, its willingness to act by taking on some symbolic stroke limited action. What it takes in the days to come, that is the Chinese decision.
Let me ask Colonel RSN.
All satellites are watching what is happening, what is the mobilization.
Let me ask Colonel RSN also, who's listening in intently. And this is a question that I want to ask you based on what we have seen over the last 6 months, Colonel RSN. We have seen a war, a damaging war already being waged in Ukraine, where the United States has committed resources. Now, on the back of that, is the United States too far stretched to single-handedly rebuff or contain China in the event of an escalation? General Bakshi says there might be some proactive action that the Chinese might take. It might be limited. But if it does, are the Americans too far stretched today?
No, but in this case, the Americans are quite close to China's. China doesn't enjoy that advantage. You see the entire eastern coast of China, you have American troops in Japan, you have it in South Korea, you have 2 aircraft carrier groups around Taiwan group, you have troops in Australia, Philippines, so and a huge base in Guam. So and further to in Hawaii. So if you see the map, the Chinese are clearly at a disadvantage if you combine all these forces and the war resources. And don't forget that the entire success story of China started from the eastern coast. All these Shanghai and other areas. So I would say it's an Achilles heel, and please don't go by this don't go by the military balance and inventories. It's all absolutely nonsense. It doesn't work actually. Don't go by that. You have to see the geopolitical and geostrategic advantage vis-a-vis disadvantage. And I see clearly in geostrategic terms, if you see take the Indo-Pacific region as a whole, the Americans clearly have an advantage.
Okay.
And I can bet, I can bet on this that the Chinese will be very foolish to invite, to provoke or and thus, invite any kind of retaliation. But you are absolutely right. No, as far as Ukraine is concerned, no, the Americans have not deployed their resources directly. They are contributing indirectly. But probably somebody on the previous anchor on the 8 o'clock show, she asked me that about the timing of the visit. Yes, it could have been prompted by the ongoing Russian-Ukraine conflict, and there certainly the Western forces are,
okay. Let me tell you that Nancy Pelosi, after landing in Taiwan, has just tweeted. Their viewers on your screens is that tweet. Our visit is one of several congressional delegations to Taiwan, as in no way contradicts long-standing United States policy guided by the Taiwanese. Let's go back to that tweet, really. Yes, by the Taiwan Relations Act of '79, U.S.-China joint communiques and the 6 assurances. So very important. Nancy Pelosi suggesting that there is precedent here, that they are being guided by certain agreements that were reached. Let's decode this a little bit. Let me bring back General Bakshi, as well as, of course, Vivek Katju, former MEA Secretary. Mr. Katju, the United States falling back on diplomats. Number 2, falling back on certain agreements that were reached. Nancy Pelosi also says our delegation's visit to Taiwan honors America's unwavering commitment to supporting Taiwan's vibrant democracy. Our discussion with Taiwan leadership reaffirms our support for our partner and promotes our shared interests, including advancing a free and open Indo-Pacific. America's solidarity with the 23 million people of Taiwan is more important today than ever, as the world faces a choice between autocracy and democracy. What do you make of this, Mr. Katju?
In the first place, I think what Nancy Pelosi has emphasized is that her visit does not mean a moving away from America's principal position of supporting a one-China policy. That is clearly spelled out. After that, she has said or reiterated America's known positions on Taiwan. So therefore, she is trying to cushion the impact of her policy on Beijing. The difficulty is that Xi Jinping is faced with a domestic issue. He is, as my co-panelists have said, in a very, very significant stage for his political future, in the sense he wants to win a 3rd term, and hence he would be obliged, notwithstanding this reiteration of America's basic positions and time-honored positions, to act. The question is, in what nature will he act? He has rattled the sabers, all the sabers that he has, but Xi Jinping knows that in his quest to attack, quote-unquote, the established world order, he can't overstep his limits at the moment. So he is in a bit of a quandary because his people look upon this as a provocation. I suspect that he will act not directly, but indirectly in a manner to demonstrate to the Chinese people that he is no pushover, that he has maintained China's face, and that is something we know is most important for the Chinese.
Okay.
How precisely he will act is something that we can all discuss and debate, but I do not see that he will, at this stage, go in for a military confrontation.
Okay.
He knows that a military confrontation between the two great, what are now the two great or the greatest nuclear powers in the world is much too dangerous.
Much too dangerous.
It will
Okay,
be
let me quickly
step.
go across to General Bakshi. General Bakshi, what's prompting Biden to push the envelope? We haven't had a visit at this level since Newt Gingrich's visit 25 years ago. So what's pushing Biden here?
Look, the simple fact is that if you follow the China watchers, they are saying that the Chinese demographic is in the decline, right? Serious decline because of the one-child policy. Their economy is facing problems. This may be his last chance to act, just as it was Russia's last chance to act in Ukraine. Demographically, thereafter, they're not going to be in a position. So we are stepping on some dangerous terrain. Let me give you some precedents, you know, by military historical precedents. 1950, you know, General MacArthur was advancing onto the Yalu, right? The Chinese PLA. Then there was Mao Zedong, a combat-hardened Chinese military leader. He warned the Americans not to cross the Yalu, not to come close to the Yalu. MacArthur ignored, he went close to the Yalu, and 1 million Chinese attacked across the Yalu. Now the difference today is, you know, that the Chinese army hasn't fought a war for the last 40 years, 41 in fact. And when it fought the last war with Vietnam, it did not put up a very good show. These people haven't really fought war, so their willingness to fight would not be as much as Mao's was. That leadership had fought non-stop for 30 years.
Yes.
But yet they have their prestige.
Okay.
They have the loss of face.
Madhavdas
If you do nothing, the Chinese
Madhavdas
leadership will suffer
the
a serious
Chinese
loss.
Communist Party, Taiwan Work Office, obviously the one that looks after the affairs of Taiwan, has tweeted, it has said that it has said some harsh words for Taiwan, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. In fact, they're saying that this is a collusion with the US that will lead to disaster. Those are the words coming in over there. And in fact, it's being carried by the official broadcaster's Twitter handle that we can see displayed on our screens as well. Several of the Chinese state handles have also been putting out tweets saying that Pelosi has landed in Taiwan, opening an era of high-intensity competition between China and the US over the Taiwan Strait. Taiwan is close to Chinese mainland and Beijing has sufficient cards at hand. We will play them one by one confidently. The PLA is announcing a series of actions. So these are all voices which are known to be, taking the official China line, which are putting out all of these messages. But Rahul, I just want to very quickly, in 30 seconds, bring to you an anecdote of what happened 2 months ago when there was a Quad summit right there in Tokyo. And all of that, of course, were not just Indian Prime Minister Modi, but the leaders of the US, President Joe Biden was present there, Anthony Albanese was there, and of course, the Japanese PM was present there. At that Quad conference, we had suddenly seen, choppers starting to circle the conference venue, and later we found out that it was because there were joint exercises by the China and Russian air forces that were being carried out in the East China Sea and in the Sea of Japan, and that in fact led to fighter jets being scrambled from the Japanese and the South Korean side, which had to shadow these aircraft. So this is not something that has happened for the first time. It is something that is very well known. China in the past also, when it has ever felt threatened and wants to send out a message, has similarly scrambled its jets, and it's something that's happened in the past as well.
Well, that's very good. That's very good perspective that you've just brought in, quoting past history. I just want to draw viewers' attentions to what Global Times, which is the Chinese state-affiliated media, its mouthpiece really for the Chinese government. It's come out and said that China will definitely take all necessary measures to resolutely safeguard its sovereignty and territorial integrity in response to the US speaker's visit. All the consequences must be borne by the US and the Taiwan independence separatist forces. This is FM on Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. So the Chinese FM is being quoted there. General Bakshi says that some sort of limited action could be taken by the Chinese. Let's see, viewers. Let's see if the Chinese follow up their big words, they walk the talk or not. But I want to shift focus a little bit because there's been another very dramatic development.